Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode here on the Sticks and Bones podcast. Happy fall equinox. How are you, Dr.
It is
Kellenbarger?
fall. Queen Persephone's back in the underworld, and things just seem right in the world. You know what I mean? It's fall. We've made it through summer. We've made it through the hot months. And yeah, it's good.
I'm really excited. If you've been with us for a while, here at Sticks and Bones, we love fall. Outside of, what we do here on the podcast, we are fall girls. I love a good pumpkin spice latte. I turn into a basic girl. During the fall, I wear my Uggs, I wear big sweaters. I'm watching Gilmore Girls. I do not care how you stereotype me. I am that typical white girl with her PSL, and I don't care.
If there's one thing about us that is basic, you know what? Let it be pumpkin spice lattes. I
Yeah,
don't.
it's not about the fact that we do episodes on human sacrifice and talk about really crazy myths and mythology. It's the fact that, we are basic in a sense. Like we do touch the basic scale when it hits the fall equinox. So,
How
whatever.
could we not?
I know I'm getting really excited for like all the shows, all the movies, like the weather getting colder. I'm just like, I don't know. I come alive during this time of year.
It's truly like Jack Skellington coming out of the fountain as the townspeople are singing. That is Chelsea and I waking up every crisp morning in fall.
No, I'm really excited. So happy fall equinox to those of you out there, those of you that are celebrating the reunification of King Hades and Queen Persephone, those of you that purchased the Eleusis candle, Acheron candle from us, the Eleusis celebration box that we had on Patreon. This is a big time of year here at Sticks and Bones. And you know what? While the fall equinox is huge, obviously in ancient Greek religion and our own practice, it is only one big thing that we have going on this year. And this is a big episode, if you will.
Yes.
We're revisiting our gal pal Medusa, very different than the first Medusa episode we talked about, because I'll tell you why in a minute. Medusa is important to some of the announcements that we have going on today.
Oh, it's time.
It's time. But yeah, we are revisiting Medusa mostly because we want to talk about, and we'll talk about this at the end. Did the ancients worship Medusa?
Such an interesting concept and so much misinformation about this, really. And Chelsea and I were looking at each other and we looked back in the tomes of Sticks and Bones and we realized we have not touched Medusa since episode 5. So we said,
No.
let's bring her back to life once
We've
again.
made we've made note in episode five. I'm going to give you some episodes. Episode five, we talk about Medusa and her actual mythology in Greece. It is not the retelling that everybody knows today and her symbology of her being essayed and why women have tattoos of Medusa. That's actually not the Greek myth. We talk all about it in that episode of what her actual mythology is, and then Ovid comes along and then does a huge retelling, which we'll get to. And we also touch upon Medusa in a lot of the apotropaic protection episodes because the Gorgon iconography is used for protection in the ancient world. And we're going to touch upon that today. So if you're looking for some background, we did do a deep dive into Medusa, and then we have been talking about her this whole time, just under the Gorgon, I
Yes.
guess, nomenclature.
Yeah. And for those of you who took the, evil eye, class and everything, to learn about this ancient superstition and really curse, you really got to see a real deep dive into Gorgoneons and how they were used with everything. So if you guys are interested in that, that will be returning to Sticks and Bones back in the spring.
Oh yeah, we got a long ways to wait, but it's fall. And in the fall, the Sticks and Bones girls come alive in the nighttime. And we are here nonetheless to tell you about all the things that are going on in the fall. Because if you're here at Sticks and Bones in the fall, you are in the right place. We have some exciting new temple resources that are coming out on September 25th. I'm going to let Dr. K talk about hers, but we are doing classes on altars in the ancient world taught by Dr. Kellenbarger and how to leave offerings to the Greek gods and what you would leave by me, High Priestess Chelsea. So those classes are coming out. Do you want to explain a little bit about why we've chosen those two of like, why these, why now?
Why these? Why now? Great questions. And we always kind of run our resource center, kind of around the semester schedule of, everybody's back to school right now. So we got to up our resources. And two really great topics to start with are altars get a lot of questions, get a lot of stress about altars. So we're talking about altars in the ancient world. I am actually going through, where were altars found in the ancient world? What were ancient, Greco-Romans doing with altars? And looking at some case studies of, specific examples of household altars that you too can modernize. So we really wanted to do this because altars and offerings, probably top two questions that
Mhm.
we get here. So I am covering that. And I know Chelsea is doing really, the other half of the household, which is how to leave an offering to a Greek god.
Oh yeah, I get a lot of stress. My DMs, Six and Bones DMs are always filled with altars,
Wild.
offerings, altars, offerings. How? How do I do it? How do I do it? It's okay. We got you. We are going to have a class on it. These classes are going to be short. So if you just like want to see how we do it or how the ancients did it, and my class will be modernizing a little bit like how to leave an offering, but the types of offerings are going to remain like what the ancients would have left because that's how I practice. And it'll be really fun. So that's coming out on the 25th of September. So mark your calendar. You'll see it in the Six of Bones Temple resources. You can find updates on that by following us on Instagram. All of that is linked in the show notes below. We have that laid out beautifully for you. So if you're like, how do I know? Where do I go? Check it all out in the information. I will have the resource center linked and you'll be able to find it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we do have some exciting Patreon updates because remember, this is fall. So like this is our this is where we do our big ones. Like big things are happening. So what do we have going on Patreon?
Oh, another great episode brought to you by Sticks and Bones Patreon, you guys. Shocker. Spoiler alert if you haven't been with us for a while. And this month we are actually talking about Persephone and Eleusis because it was just the fall equinox. So if you want to know about Persephone, her mystery cult at Eleusis, and how the ancients really celebrated her, check that out on Patreon. If you are wanting to dive deeper into the realm of Medusa and the realm of monsters, join us for book club for our middle and top tiers. We are reading the retelling. It is Medusa's Sisters, and part one is actually up now. So let us know how you guys have been enjoying this book. We've done Song of Achilles, we've done Circe, and now we're diving into Medusa's Sisters.
I'm so
Chelsea.
excited. I love book club, by the way. I don't mean to interrupt you, but seriously, book club has been so fun and I love seeing the feedback. And it's no rush on book club, by the way. Like when you get to it, you get to it. But I love seeing the feedback of other people reading the book and being like, yeah, I agree with you, or like, no, I don't. So I'm here for it. It's been a lot of fun doing the retellings for sure.
It's been so fun. So we kind of get on our like spooky stuff this month. So part one is up. Chelsea's going to be dropping a video on, 5 tips for worshiping the Greek goddess Persephone. That is going to be out for everybody. And for the top tier, not only are you guys getting early access to mystery boxes, but you guys are getting a vlog of behind the scenes, Chelsea and I creating, to making orders, to packing, literally the whole process. Like we are so excited for mystery boxes coming out.
We
But
are. I'm also like all the work we put
are
into
we
these.
ready?
I like sometimes I document these vlogs for Patreon and I'm like, how do I live? Sometimes like what goes on in the Sticks and Bones Temple where it's like it's just like a mad rush. It's just like a mad rush, like things being created, like multiples of it, and putting them together and making sure everything's perfect for the client and the customer. And it is really funny. Like we have a good time. We eat lots of donuts. We have lots of pumpkin spice lattes. We order Greek food all the time because we're just like,
I
I need to
need
order lunch right
a
now.
euro. I need some tzatziki. I need something now.
I need food 24/7.
Oh, I'm always
I'm
hungry.
excited. Oh, same. Anytime we're in the temple and I like don't have my lunch, I'm like, 10, do you want to order Greek food? And she's always like, yes. Are you kidding? So we're anytime we either order ramen or Greek food, like the best.
RIP our ramen place.
I know. Wait, did it close down forever?
Yeah, it's not returning right now to like where we order and everything. So
You
RIP,
didn't
man.
tell me this news. I'm finding this out live on a podcast episode.
I'm so sorry.
Oh my God. I've never been able to find ramen like that since then. Are you kidding me?
I
Wait,
did find another good ramen place.
no, I know, but it's never gonna be the
It's
same,
change, and I hate change. We're not girlies who like change.
Wait, you just broke this news to me on a podcast while we were recording.
live in front of a studio audience.
Oh my God. What am I supposed to do? We order that a lot during like the winter mystery boxes. We're always eating soup and ramen.
It's soup season, man. I don't know.
I
I'm
don't
in
like
mourning.
change.
I've been in mourning for months and I have not wanted to share this news, but I've been sitting on this bomb for months and I'm
For
just
you
like,
just drop it on a podcast, our ramen place is gone.
I've been waiting and I've been checking daily on DoorDash to see if they're gonna return and they just haven't. And I'm just like, I gotta tell her. Like we're shipping tomorrow for mystery boxes. Like I have to tell her.
We have to start a GoFundMe. What's their problem? Can I solve it?
I don't know. I was ready to drive there and bang on the door.
Let me in.
I
That's
saw
like,
Chelsea get her egg.
I need my eggs from there. Ugh. Okay, anyway, for those of you listening, you're probably like, what the hell ever. But this is a big deal. When my like takeout place closes down or something happens to it, I will never ever be the same. It's like comfort.
Yeah, you gotta hold a funeral, you know?
I'm so sad for them. Well, speaking of mystery boxes, we have to move on. Rip to the ramen place. You'll have to show me the other one.
No.
Speaking of mystery boxes, okay, this is the big announcement today. If you've been listening to the podcast bi-weekly, this is going to come as no shock to you what we're about to say. Mystery boxes, they are dropping. So we have the first drop happening in the Elysian tier on Patreon, which is our highest tier on Friday, 9/27, September 27th. So Patreon will be getting it first, and whatever we'll have some left over. What's left over will be going publicly on Monday, September 30th at 12 p.m. Eastern time. You will have access to the mystery boxes. Now, for those of you that may have just found us or you weren't listening to us or you skipped this part, it's okay. What are mystery boxes? In your opinion, Ten, what would you say mystery boxes are? You were going to ask me this question and I turned it on you.
got me from the ramen.
I got you for the ramen bomb. How would you describe like mystery boxes?
It is the biggest labor of love that we do each and every season. And
Mhm.
you might be saying, like, okay, cool, like collections, yeah, you should love them. But these are collections that do not go public. These are secret collections, if you will, because we run a mystery cult, much like the ancients were part of. So, with that being said, only a select number of boxes are going out, not going to be overflow. There is only going to be this collection for really like the months of very, very late September and first half of October. Once they're gone, and they do not come back, and they will never see the light of day in the
I
public
know.
facing store, which it's so sad, but it really allows Chelsea and I to play with and have so much creative freedom between the two of us, where each piece of art and every piece of our collection is based on, beautiful artwork, or it's based in ancient history, ancient Greek religion, ancient Greek mythology. It is based in something, and then we develop literally a whole world around it. And it's so much fun.
It really is. And the two collections that we have going for the mystery boxes are, you ready? The Medusa collection. So
Yo.
Medusa will never be seeing the light of day in this form at Styx and Bones Temple aside from this collection. We might be
Mm-hmm.
doing it in another way at another time. I might be giving you a little sneak preview. Tell you. But we are doing a whole collection around Medusa, the candle, the artwork, everything about it is based either A, in ancient art, artwork in general, or something that the ancients believed, her mythology, her correct mythology, not what she's been made out in modern day. It is literally the mythology around Medusa. Each element is created so beautifully around this collection. And then the second one we have is the Crone collection, which we wanted to bring a little bit of like spooky witch energy into the temple. But since we don't do Halloween in the temple, we decided to do a take on the Witch of Erichtho. I highly recommend you look her up and read through her story and who she is and how the ancients viewed her, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And she is really the spirit of fall and spiritual protection, while Medusa is more of like the home protection. So we do have like a crone, a haggard witch, and then we also have Medusa coming in at the same time. So
Oh
we're
yeah.
it's definitely giving spooky mythological monster energy.
It is. And on the subject of the Witch of Eric, though, and really like how these women were viewed, highly recommend the temple resource on the Hecate course, the connecting and learning about who through learning about her through her cultic worship. I dove heavily into the Witch of Eric, though. Why is she looking the way she is?
Oh
It's
yeah.
so fascinating.
It is. So we're really excited. The collection comes with candles, custom incense that we create, artwork, more, whatever. I'm not going to tell you what's in the box because it's a secret. And we will show some photos, but like you won't know what's entirely in the box. It's actually a mystery.
It
It's
is.
literally a mystery. So you have the chance of getting any of these collections. We just like hand select things and off we go. So
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too because Medusa is like the best. And I love Medusa and I love the iconography. The artwork that we chose is amazing. And yeah, everything is just, we create it custom, beautiful, one of a kind.
Yeah, I've had so much fun with this one. And yeah, I can't wait. We already know what the winter collection is too. So we don't sleep.
Absolutely. So make sure you set your alarms. I want to announce for those of you that have been buying mystery boxes from us through these years. We are no longer doing the readings anymore that come with the box. Partially because we realized that mostly everybody was getting the same sort of message. And then we realized it's because if you're drawn to buying a mystery box from us, you most likely need what's in that collection, whether it's the spiritual protection, etc. So each box is its own reading because you don't even know what's in it. So every box comes with a collection card. We explain why we did this, what it's about, how we, use magic in certain things. So we're no longer doing the readings this year. I just wanted to put that out there. So if you do buy a mystery box, the collection is your reading.
Yes.
Okay, so those are the dates for that. Set your alarms because they do sell out really fast. And I say it's now time to talk about Medusa
Oh,
because
yes.
I've been
Oh,
waiting
yes.
a damn minute, I think, to talk about and get on my soapbox about Medusa. How about you?
We are here to set the story straight about, who is Medusa? Did the ancients worship Medusa? And, when we say ancients, we're talking Greco-Romans. And, really, you're going to hear it from the horse's mouth. You're going to hear it from two professionals here and now.
Absolutely. And to be fully transparent, aside from talking about like who are the Gorgons and where Medusa's place is in mythology, when we get to the family tree part, and maybe we start there
We can
and
start there.
let's start there. Um, Ten and I had to actually go look into this information, and I want to make something very clear about Medusa. I'm going to say this.
Mm-hmm.
She is not prominent in ancient Greek religion, and it was very hard to kind of find the information that maybe you people have wanted from us or the questions that people ask us because she's not super prominent aside from her myth in the original mythology and
Yeah.
the Ovid's Metamorphosis, which is a Roman retelling, right? So it's not the actual Greek myth. So aside
Yeah.
from that, we're kind of like,
Yeah, I mean it's not much. Like she shows up, I should say, in like literally like one passing sentence in Homer. And
mhm.
it's really, I'll just kind of go into like who is she with Homer. So we're talking like pre-7th century BCE. Homer just gives like a passing sentence and mentions a single Gorgon. So like we only have one at that time. But then good guy, Hesiod, he comes around still pre-7th century. And I say pre-7th, and there's a whole reason why. Take the Hecate course to find out why. But with that being said, he comes around and he says, nay, 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 my guy. There's actually three, and he names them. Cool. Now we got three sisters. But we don't really have any like stories about them. We know that they are monsters of the underworld, and Homer is just like, yep, monster of the underworld, done. Like, it's not a goddess. It's not this like divine figure. When we were reading the book Circe, like Circe is a goddess. Like
Mhm.
she has ties and associations to so many different things. But then Ovid, he is writing Metamorphosis in 8 CE. And I didn't get my PhD in math, but that's over 500 years later that we are getting a totally different story occurring. And with that being said, it's not, incorrect to be like, oh, well, this is Ovid's story, this is Homer's story, sentence more likely, or this is Hesiod's. It's like you can just say this is the earliest, this is the second earliest, this is the later rendition, but you can't say like, oh, this one's the most true because these myths and stories were true to the people living in that time.
I think you said that perfectly. I think you said that perfectly. But even you take Ovid, who's 500 years later, she still isn't this huge figure. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could take the Ovid Metamorphosis story,
Yeah.
which is the story about her and being a priestess to Athena and, her essay that having to deal with Poseidon, which I highly recommend you go back to episode 5. We dive into all that
Yeah.
mythology and talk about it. So that might be a good precursor to this episode. If you're not following along with us, you have no idea what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Go listen to that and then come back. But
Yeah.
she still isn't huge in the
Nope.
society and the myth. The myth is just the myth that Ovid retold. And it's an amazing myth that I think many people connect with, women connect with, including myself. I understand
Yeah.
that myth means a lot to a lot of people in modern day. But if we're looking at the time period or when the story was happening, there's no like I guess this is my next point is there's no cultic sort of worship or happenings going on with Medusa because of this story. Like women weren't gathering their pitchforks around and going, "Hail Medusa" in the middle of the night. You know what I mean?
No, there's no evidence to support cultic worship. And like the earliest mentions of her that we have just show that she's a monster who is a phantom of Hades. So not divine, not anything. They might live, the Gorgons might live and guard the entrance to Hades. But again, why would you worship that? Like we can name any X or Y god goddess in ancient Greek religion and say, this is why you would worship Demeter. This is why you would worship Persephone. This is why you would go to Zeus. Why would you go to Medusa? And you are absolutely right. There is no archaeological evidence of cultic worship. And I know some of you out there might be like, well, didn't she talk about that one time and that one site near the edge of the Mediterranean world where there was votive offerings of her face left? And yes, and if you say it that way, well, your answer is already in your question. That is a votive offering. That is not evidence of cultic worship. Sailors left that in ask of protection because they were traveling past their known world. Ergo, you're asking for protection. That's not worship. Does that make sense?
100%. And like once again, we've talked about this if you've been at Six Moons for a while. Medusa's iconography, the Gorgon head, the
Yes.
Gorgoneon, is known for protection. You can find it on Athena, you can find it on Zeus, you can find it on Alexander the Great. They wore it on their breastplates, their armors, right? They're going into
Mm-hmm.
war. And I made this point with Tem before. I was like, she's not like this girl boss, like coming out to slay men in the middle of the night. Because honestly, if that was true, why would Zeus be wearing her face on his armor? He is the king of doing his own wife dirty, you know what I mean? And if Medusa is being portrayed as this girl boss coming out and like, we're rising her from the underworld and she's slaying cheating people in the middle of the night, that's not who she is. And
Oh,
it's so much more than that and so much more intricate. Like you can leave an offering or a votive for protection. You can use her image for protection, right? Like that is ancient. That is how people were viewing her. But it wasn't like we don't even have any evidence. And I'm going to ask you this: do we even have evidence of her on curse tablets?
no.
Right.
No. And I know somebody will be like, well, isn't there a rendition of somebody with snakes? Didn't you cover that on Patreon, on the Dirt Diaries Patreon? Yes. But if you paid attention to that, it's not Medusa. Why would a Gorgon, why would a monster who is known as a phantom of Hades, who guards the entrance in some renditions to the underworld, whose image adorned the armor of gods and men throughout centuries and war, why would you use her in a curse tablet?
Well, we had this conversation. Like, I couldn't even, and we study curse tablets heavily. We know how to write curse tablets. 10 and I know the Greek magical papyri, forward, front, backwards. I even posed the question, do we even see her in the Greek magical papyri? And the answer is no. She's not even like, I feel like in modern day, people are portraying her as like she is a man eater. She eats men. She's turning everybody into stone and she's cursing people left and right because of what happened to her. That's not true at all. We don't even have her on a curse tablet. We don't have her in the Greek magical papyri, which, by the way, even if we did, I would question that source anyway of like,
It's
okay,
later.
it's so much later. You would be going to a god, a goddess, even in the Greek magical papyri, because everyone loves to bring that out as evidence. It's gods, it's divinities, it's Yahweh, it's a conglomeration of these divine beings, which Medusa is not. She doesn't rule over anything, nothing.
No.
She has a job.
She really does have a job, and like she is divine, but she's not a goddess because in some instances of her family tree, it's Gaia who creates the Gorgon singular to fight against the gods. And I implore you all to figure out who was fighting who was fighting against the Olympians, who was fighting against the Titans, because sides and lines are going to be drawn with family trees. And then in later renditions, we see that herself and her sisters are born of the union of Phorcys and Ceto, and their mother, Ceto, who is a goddess of sea monsters. Her name literally translates to sea monster.
Mm-hmm.
And not only those three, but her other siblings are also monsters. In one rendition, Scylla is her sister. And another
Right.
rendition, like there's so many different like monsters, monstrous creatures who are coming out of this union. So she is divine, but she's not a goddess. She has direct lineage to Gaia, but she's not a goddess
Well,
like
that's like
Perseus.
how we talked about Nyx in the one episode of how she created the Furies. They're not
Yes,
gods or goddesses.
they are entities. They
They
are
have like a function. Thanatos, I'm sorry, he's not a god as well. And Nyx
he's a
created him.
demone.
He's a daemone, which is a lesser spirit, different, right? So understanding these things is really going to help you navigate the
Yeah.
mythology, the ancient Greco-Roman world. And honestly, like I'm thinking to myself, if I were to go to write a curse, Medusa is not who I'm going to ask for because that's falling upon deaf ears. Like, what does she? Could you imagine me writing a petition to the underworld?
If
Hi, King Hades, like, you know how we do it. And you send it down. Can you let Medusa out so she can literally eat a man? He'd be like,
she's protection,
she's
why are
protection.
you bothering me?
It would go right in the garbage can. You know what I'm saying? And like she does work in Hades. So like in my mind, the hierarchical system is that like most likely because she doesn't operate as her own goddess, you would have to petition an underworld god to allow that to happen. You know?
And at that point, if we're going by, ancient mythographers and ancient philosophers and everything, then she, in a sense, would be almost on par with Cerberus. But Cerberus,
100%.
his job is to make sure nothing gets out. Medusa, her and her iconography are for protection. So why would you need her for a shade, for binding and love and all of that kind of stuff? And then you throw in the variable in this math problem of she's mortal and her mythology ends with Perseus cutting her head off. So she's kaput. So
Yes.
why would I be bringing her up when you also brought up gods like Athena and Zeus are wearing her on her breastplate? I dove into some artifacts on Dirt Diaries of her image on, shin guards. They were using this image to scare people in the battlefield. Why would I bring her up for a curse for love?
No, I mean, people listen to Sticks and Bones a while. You know, a few goddesses that we talked about curse tablets who I'd rather go to and things like that because that is how it's done. And yeah, modern perceptions of Medusa, right? So
Mhm.
I want to say that and if you listen to episode 5, I totally relate to people understanding Ovid's retelling and taking that story. There's nothing wrong with that. I have no problems with that. The issues that I have with is people saying that they're using Medusa to curse other people or she's some sort of like hound dog that you just literally summon from the underworld and like think you can use to your advantage or that she's a goddess. She's not any of those things. She is a
No.
symbol of protection and I think it's very beautiful that many people today, no matter how you identify, when you see someone with a Medusa tattoo, we all really know what that means. But also, because you're using her face, it's protection. So it's protecting anything from harming you.
I love that. I think it's a beautiful modernization because the ancients were putting it on their armor. And what is your skin, but also an armor itself. And a tattoo is a modernization of wearing this Gorgoneon armor for protection and everything. So that's a beautiful modernization. But like you said, of stating that, this is how you worship her. There is no how to. The ancient Greco-Romans didn't worship her. Her mythology, and what's so interesting is she's mortal, so she dies.
Mhm.
So why would you worship her? And her head plays a role in mythology as well. Look at certain creations of animals.
Mm-hmm.
Why was her head needed? It forms a larger story that it begs the question of how did we get here, really?
Yeah, I think it's because a lot of people relate to the story of Medusa, and trust me, totally understand. And I love that. I love that like she's become so big in modern day. But I think a caveat with that is this is ancient Greek religion, so we do have to respect how things are done. And she's no goddess, so I mean, you could leave an offering for protection, but she's not a goddess. So like I don't, like you said, she is mortal. So it's like, how is that going to help you in any sort of the sense? Like you better off wearing her iconography and actually like celebrating Hecate's Deipnon, or asking for protection, or going to certain gods for that things that they actually rule over and not her. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense? Like I wouldn't go to Medusa for love. That's Aphrodite.
Yeah. And yeah, because I'm just thinking, like, why would you use her in the Greek magical papyri? You need to know secret knowledge and know the names of gods and goddesses that aren't front facing. So you would have to know the true name of Aphrodite. You would have to know the true name of, Ra, the sun god. And it just, how would she fit in there if she is guarding an entrance, if she is a monster, if she is really tasked with a duty, like in her power, quote unquote, is her and her sisters, their gazes turn people into stone. It's not just men, it is anybody. And I often wonder if that also gets misconstrued of, oh, she only turns men into stone. No, it is. You look at her, whoever you are, you're turning to stone.
100%. Yeah. And I think what's so cool is, I personally use a lot of the Gorgon iconography as my
Mm-hmm.
own personal protections in certain places within my home. That's literally why we created the Medusa candle for the mystery boxes, is because we do, first of all, it's a myth. She's a mythological figure slash quote unquote monster.
Yeah.
And, her iconography is a symbol for protection. So like when you put that on something, that
Mm-hmm.
absolutely will protect you.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's been so many archaeological discoveries of mosaics bearing her face. And it's like, well, think about it. Why would somebody in upper class society of Greco-Roman world in the Mediterranean, why would they spend so much money on a mosaic, a floor mosaic of Medusa? Well, it's in a public space. What if somebody's coming in your house with not great intentions?
Yeah,
Well, if
for
it's in
sure.
the front hall of your house, you're going to be protected. It's kind of similar to like superstitions and evil eye. It's not magic. It is superstition, understanding what images can do and how powerful iconography can actually be.
We had I'm going to tell you this story. We had someone buy from our store once. They had felt like there was some sort of like they were
Mm,
kind of stuck, like whether it was magic or we didn't know. And they purchased something custom from Dr. K and myself. And when they used it, they had this flower pot of a Medusa head outside and it cracked right in half after they used it. And they were like, I didn't even realize. First of all, they didn't know that Medusa was a patropaic, the head. Like, because
yeah,
listen, Medusa is a very big myth these days. So like people have Medusa stuff because they love it. They love the
the snakes in the
modern
hair.
art. Yeah, like all that stuff, the colors that comes with it, etc. But I'll never forget, this person like wrote me and they were like, my Medusa head just cracked in half. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize like that was the missing key. They had like got it gifted by somebody else that was doing like not great things to them. And I was like, there you go. Your Medusa head cracked in half. So
Mm-hmm.
now it's like when evil eye breaks.
Yeah, no, exactly. That is an ancient evil eye in a sense.
A
Like,
100%. So that's how I think of it, like a Nazar. It's to protect and to defend. And if it cracks in half, or any Medusa iconography that you have cracks in half. We
mm-hmm.
had a client that messaged us and they were like, I put a certain oil in the store on my necklace and my necklace went missing. And it was iconography of Medusa. And it's like, because
It's
it
gone.
protected you from something. So, I think sometimes people don't even realize that the iconography is for protection. Like that one person that, they didn't realize when the vase cracked in half, they were like, "Oh my God." And I was like, "Yeah, it's an apotropaic image." And they were like, "I had no idea." So
Yeah.
sometimes you're bringing these symbols into your home and you don't
Mm-hmm.
even know what they mean, but they are actually still doing something.
No, absolutely. And it's really, crazy. And, speaking of, images and everything, we've gotten on our soapboxes before about, modernization of statues with certain gods and goddesses, namely Hecate. But what's so fascinating is the modernization of statues to Medusa.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it came back from like, I forget the year of the original Clash of the Titans when that movie came out. It was like back maybe in like the 70s, 80s, something like that. But it depicts her as a woman with hair, but she's very reptile like. She is like upper body of a woman, lower body snake.
Yes, yes.
Yes. And it seems like that has become the modernization iconography of her when like the iconography of her for the ancient Greco-Roman time period never was that. Like I truly wonder how we got here sometimes because yes, her iconography changes from, ancient Greek to ancient Roman. She looks more beautiful, but it's still like she is human with snakes for hair. Like they are monsters. Her and her two sisters are monsters.
I mean, you're not going to worship a monster. You know what I mean? Like that's just not what's happening here.
Yeah.
We even see it with the heroes, right? So like Heracles is different because he has like his own cultic worship because
Yes.
he is the son of Zeus, but even the heroes are not worshipped. Like we're not worshiping Odysseus, we're not worshiping Achilles. These are literal figures, huge figures in mythology. And I feel like Medusa is on that level now of a big figure in mythology, but just because they're in mythology doesn't mean we leave offerings and worship them. They are there to tell a story. They serve a function and a purpose. The heroes, the whole story around the heroes we talk about all the time, serves a function and a purpose to teach
Yes.
human beings about having hubris. And look what
Yes.
happens to you when you don't, right?
Absolutely. And hero cults outside of Heracles and then Roman Hercules is the hero cult itself is crazy because then you have like later kings and Roman emperors coming to, the supposed tomb of Achilles
Mhm.
because all of these great figures, including Alexander the Great, are trying to be the next embodiment of these mythical figures.
But like,
So
why would you want that?
exactly. And it's so fascinating because like you have Alexander the Great who, is said to have seen, the tomb of Achilles and then you have, Roman emperors going to visit them, Augustus. You have all
Right.
these people being like I'm the embodiment or I'm the embodiment of this god. You have like all of these things and it's like what purpose are they serving?
Well, they clearly didn't read the stories right. But yeah, it's like what purpose? So I think with Medusa, it's like, and I love the iconography and plot twist. We're gonna have a lot more around the Gorgons happening in the temple because we both use that image in our home for protection. And it is an ode and tribute to the Gorgons, the Greco-Roman world, and obviously the myth around Medusa.
Mhm.
So that's why we sell ancient artwork as well, is because a lot of these things, right, we can modernize things and take them into modern day, but I think sometimes it gets really out of hand where it's just completely wrong and it's
Yes.
just what people want it to be. Like, we'll take the artwork of Hades and Persephone, for example, that I believe came from a funerary vase, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we sell that ancient art in the store, and a lot of people are like, well, that's not how they look. And it's like, well, that's how they look in ancient Greek religion. This is how Greeks looked in the Greco-Roman world. Like, this is how people looked. And a lot of it is, and I want to say it again, a lot of whitewashing, taking away the European-centric features on the face. People looked entirely different depending on where you lived in the world, and not everybody looks white with blonde hair and blue eyes. They do it to Aphrodite a lot. It's
Mhm.
not how we view our gods, and that's not how their artwork is. So we have to get comfortable with that of like,
Mhm.
they're not going to look like us because they're from a different time period and a different part of the world.
Yes.
We can't erase that. That's cultural erasure.
Yeah. And yeah, just like the iconography aspect. It's so fascinating because you brought up Hades and Persephone, and I feel like their one myth is like Medusa's one myth. She had a
Yes.
passing sentence or two in Homer. Like
No, for sure.
it's like
Listen,
Medusa got a sentence in Homer, and it's literally like what happened with in the Star Wars world of they made a whole movie Rogue One off of one sentence in A New Hope. And I feel like that's where we are with Medusa right now. Like
no, no, we really are. And I just think it's important to understand like where these things come from because I understand where these things come from. I'm okay with like reading retellings
I
and like
love it.
looking at
Yes.
modern artwork of things. I have modern artwork of things in my house, but it's because I understand, okay, I like this rendition, but also I understand how things were in the ancient world, and like this isn't actually real life. Like this
Love
is
Song of Achilles. Achilles is also terrible. Like we've read Homer. We know.
yeah, 100%. Like we're reading Medusa Sisters. Like this is not an actual. It's
No,
talking about mythology that's happening, but it's not an actual like. This is not.
no. We did Circe. Circe never made it to Crete. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, yeah, right. Like it's not. This is not the way it works. But we can indulge in it and like have fun. But
Absolutely.
when it comes down to like worship and leaving offerings, you want to make sure you're doing that correctly because then there's going to be no outcome. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's not
And
wasting your time, I feel like.
yeah, and I know like in the mythology with, her being slayed by Perseus because Perseus needs her head to save Andromeda and blah blah blah. When he's carrying her head in a bag, which what a way to travel, her blood is dripping, and that is how we get the red coral. That's how we get poisonous snakes. Like it's very beautiful how the ancients were describing how things came to be in their environment. But what's interesting to see is her blood, it plays a role in mythology. There's no blood, there's no worship of her, first of all, but there would be no blood for her if there was worship.
Yeah, we don't leave blood as offerings to the gods. I know we've talked about human sacrifice.
Different
That's a
story.
very different scenario. And a lot of what we talked about from at least like in the Greco-Roman world was mythological aside from the Vestal Virgins.
Mm-hmm.
Um, maybe one day we'll find evidence of actual human sacrifice, but we don't leave blood in ancient Greek religion. That's a big like no-no. That's not something we do. We leave a million other things. That's why I think the offerings course and the altar course is going to be really helpful. We don't leave blood to Hecate. Please don't do that. Um, there is this concept of like cleanliness and things like that we talked about miasma and the high priestesshood in a different episode. We don't leave blood offerings at all.
The, yeah, the only blood that I'm using kind of quotes because it's not just like a cup of blood that you would be like, here you go. It is the sacrifice of an animal. So it is
An
the
animal though,
it is the
different.
act itself. And you're going to go into why it would with altars and what you would be doing. But with that, it is the whole act in ritualization of the animal sacrifice. Why are you doing this? The more animals, the better. As we saw with, the Minotaur, King Minos didn't want to sacrifice his most beautiful bull. So, like, it's really that kind of stuff. And of course, there's a lot of bloodless sacrifices as well.
Oh yeah, animal sacrifice is huge.
Yeah.
Big time. Sacrificing bulls, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, as far as what we do and what people do, we were not leaving their blood. We don't have any evidence of that, so I'm gonna go out
Mm-mm.
on a limb and say that wasn't.
Not that I can tell, like, and I know I mentioned this to you earlier, but with human sacrifice, we have it in earlier periods, but yeah, jury's kind of still out right now.
Conversation for another day. Conversation for another day. But yeah, so I guess like in conclusion, I'm going to ask you this question. Did the ancients worship Medusa? Like now that we've presented all the evidence and we've even looked at later periods, right? Like we're
Yeah.
going now fast forward 500 years, we're looking at the Greek magical papyri. Do we have evidence of the ancients worshiping Medusa?
No. Her image, and I wouldn't even say she, the iconography of the Gorgon was its own kind of, for lack of a better word, entity. That was its own tool,
Mm-hmm.
was that imagery and the knowledge of it. Was there worship? No. Was there votives left? Yes, but that is not worship. And I think it is an interesting line that we see when studying the past. And it really comes down to an understanding of what is worship, what is ritual, what is cultic, what is domestic, what is all of these X amount of terms. And it really comes back to understanding ancient Greek religion and asking people for why should I listen to you about this? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the modern takes on Medusa, and I listen, I love a good modern take myself sometimes, but at the end of the day, that's not the religious belief. So it's not going to be that way. It just isn't. That's just not the way that it is. It's not the way our religion works, our practice. And what you just rightfully said is like, even though it's the iconography of a Gorgon, it doesn't mean it's Medusa. It's this concept of a Gorgon overall, which she is. So
Yes.
you can say it's Medusa, but it's this concept of a Gorgon in general that we've talked about in earlier episodes in apotropaic imagery. And so if you're looking on how to do things, the next time the Evil Eye course rolls around, I 100% recommend taking that. But yeah, we use that image for protection. It's not for cursing. She's not on any curse tablets. There are plenty of other gods and goddesses that I can list that are on curse tablets.
So
Uh,
many.
there's
There's
so
so
many
many.
other things that we could be doing. You know what I mean? Like, I can list five right now and I won't, but like, seriously, there's so many other
We can name
things.
55 in the Greek magical papyri. Like,
100%, and Medusa is not one of them. So I find it very fascinating how that's really come about and come to be. And as two people who practice ancient Greek religion and study Greek mythology, I can't give you a simple instance aside from the votives where we've seen her being worshipped because she's not a goddess. The ancients aren't worshiping anything other but gods and goddesses. And yeah, you have some cultic worship of, Heracles,
yeah.
but he is divine because he's the son of Zeus. So different.
Yeah. And then, like, you could get into like the whole thing of like state sanctioned versus domestic cult worship. And overall, for the general, ancient individual, let's call it back in 300 BC. We're in Athens. No, we're not worshiping Medusa. Like, and the
No.
votives is just leaving an offering, but they're leaving an image for protection. So,
Mhm. Totally
like, if
different.
I left a votive, I'm in Athens, 300 BC. I leave an offering for Asclepius. I mean, that's not me worshiping him. That's me asking for a favor, like saying, "Can you heal my ankle? I rolled it. Here's my votive of an ankle. Please help me. Thank you if you don't. It's just
And
a
you
pleasure
better
to be
hope
here."
he answers at the end of the day. I think
Yes.
too, the modernization of things, people think that just because they leave an offering or a votive, it has to be answered. And
Oh,
in our religious practice, it doesn't, and we understand that. Like
yeah.
we're just showing up and being like, hey, if you want to help me, here's the votive. I went through the proper channels. I've done my research. I know what I'm doing. But also we understand that that's
Yeah.
doesn't have to happen that way. So Medusa's
Just
not
happy
like
to
this.
be here.
This is not like this dog we sick on people when we've been scorned by a lover or,
No.
terrible things have happened to us. No, but we can wear her iconography for protection. So I'll just leave it at that. And
Yeah, the ancients weren't trying to use her to bind somebody to something. They were trying not to stub their toe and die. Like,
no, no, no.
bigger fish to fry.
If you're interested in learning about the concept of curse tablets and binding, we've talked about this on Styx and Bones podcast. Okay. And maybe later on down the line, we'll do a class deep diving into some curse tablets. We talk about curse tablets a little bit in the Hecate course because guess what? If I'm looking for some binding, I might be calling on Hecate. I'm not calling Medusa because Medusa doesn't do anything. I'm sorry, respectfully. Like she doesn't be wasting my
Medusa,
time, my resources, and my energy.
hate to be the bearer of bad news, Medusa's dead.
Yeah. Yes. Like,
I'm
yeah.
summoning her shade, but why would I?
And you have to know how to do that though. And then she's gonna be like, why did you call me here? Like
Yeah, she's a monster. Like,
100%. So like I think a lot of people are interested in the cursing aspect. It's like, let me tell you something. There are so many more interesting things we could be doing besides this modern snowball effect of misinformation and not truth. There's so many things we could be doing.
it like, I just thought of a great comparison. You don't see people asking, do you find the Minotaur on curses? He's a monster. He's mortal. He's dead. Like,
No.
he ain't in the Greek magical papyrus. He ain't gonna help you. He's munching on the 6 Athenians he gets every year. Like,
But literally, it's like we're not going to monsters for help because they're monsters. Like, do you think the ancient Greeks were afraid of these things? They thought they actually existed in this world. They were like, I
yeah,
am
don't go too far that way.
scared.
You're gonna run into her.
I'm gonna find Scylla when I'm out in the open sea. You know what I mean? This is the passage that she's by, and I'm gonna die.
Bye.
I gotta wear my Gorgon iconography to make sure she stays away from me.
Yeah, and hope for the best and cross all my toes and fingers. And hope
Yes.
Odysseus ain't the one at the wheel.
Literally, or we don't stumble upon an island with sacred cattle that belongs to Helios. You know what I mean?
Like, don't listen to the siren call. Like, good lord.
Yeah, she's almost like Why would we see Medusa? We would. She's a monster. But anyway, okay, I could literally go on a tangent about this forever because I'm just like, at the end of the day, what are we saying, everybody? What's going on out
These
here?
questions, like these are all good questions. Like,
They are good questions. But when we were even shaping this episode, I was like, I don't even know who her parents are because honestly, it's not part of our religion. I don't know. It's not part of our what we do out here.
as long as you know, like the Big 12, like,
And even that, I'm like, I don't remember.
and then it's like, well, are we counting them because it comes after the war? They weren't initiated into the Olympian until this time, and it's just like, God damn it.
It's kind of like when you're thinking of like the 13 states getting together, like to form the United States of America and like who signed the Declaration of Independence when, and you can't remember all the presidents. That's how I feel studying Greek mythology.
I can't name all
You know,
presidents.
George Washington, which is Zeus, and you know Ben Franklin, right? Like that's probably all I can remember right now.
Abraham Lincoln,
Oh,
Teddy
yeah.
Roosevelt, FDR.
That's all we got for you, you know?
Wait, Ben Franklin wasn't a president.
See, there you go. The more you know. Why is this man on a 50?
No, isn't Ben?
He's on a
Jackson's
100.
on a 50.
See,
Jackson also burned down part of the White House, so
I know Greek mythology more than I know the US presidents. But that's because guess why? We study it. We have to study it.
That's a little too recent for me.
Yeah, I'm like, listen, I know, but like, it's too many of them. Leave me alone.
Wasn't there a song, like a nifty song? I don't know.
50 nifty United States. The
That's the
13
state song.
original colonies. Shout them, tout them. We're very patriotic here over the United States. We have songs. Listen, there's 50 states. I can't tell you the flag for each state. I can't locate all of them on a geographical map. I can't. I'll be honest with
Do you
you.
know all their capitals?
No, I used to. Like there used to be a song for that.
I didn't know about the capital song. I knew about the state song.
There's a capital song. My mom knows all the capitals. Back in her day when she went to school, you had to know that stuff.
We did too when I was in fifth grade.
Yeah, no, I would fail that shit immediately. Like
We back in was it third or fourth grade, I had to memorize a song that was all of the Egyptian gods.
that's great. I mean, I could tell you how to write a curse tablet. You know, I am good for something.
Ra was the sun god. He was praised as the one god.
I can curse somebody for you, but don't ask me the capital of Arkansas. Don't.
Is it?
I don't know. Sorry. Oh,
Sorry if you're there.
look
Little
at
Little Rock. It's Little Rock.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. You're right. All I remember is Tallahassee,
I
Florida.
can I can sing the Genovian national anthem, but I do not know all the capitals.
I remember the Girl Scout pledge.
I got that one.
But
Tara and I
anyway,
Tara and I were watching all the Princess Diaries this past weekend. That's like a sleeper cell. Like you hear Genovia and you're ready to just sing their national anthem.
you're ready to go. I could do all that. But yeah, my point was, back to the original point of the story, the original plot was Medusa is not really
Worshipped.
part of what we're doing over here. But we do like the myth. I do respect when people have the tattoo. I understand what that symbolizes and means. And you should go forth in peace, knowing that that is an apotropaic image. So if you
Yeah.
did get a tattoo on yourself and you were like hoping she's some girl boss man eater, well, no, she isn't. But it's still a protective image. So in a way, you're not wrong.
Yeah. You are protected.
You are protected.
Maybe we should make a song of the Greek gods to memorize.
Someone's gonna have to pay me a lot of money for that. If it's one thing that I can't do many things, but I can't sing. I probably would break a glass window.
Yeah, same.
You'd have to auto tune me.
That's why I couldn't be an opera singer.
This will be our next YouTube video. Me and you rapping the Greek gods.
Like the Pokemon rap battle at the end of every episode.
Oh, we should do. What was that Pokemon? What is it?
It's Pikachu.
It's Clefairy. Fuck.
Who's that Greek god? Zeus.
Comparing
Poseidon.
Greek and Roman gods together. Let's do that one.
It's like name that saint.
Literally, I know. We were looking at Hermes statues the other day, and a lot of them were Mercury, and we were like, "Well, this isn't Hermes."
Well, this was fun to be.
Well, this is fun. I'm just gonna go sit in a corner again.
This was fun to have wrong iconography.
But I loved it because it had gold. It was the gold sandals and him running. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm worshiping Mercury. Sorry, Hermes, because I like the statue. I like the statue better than I like you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I do love
No.
that statue. It wasn't Hermes though, so
Who's
sorry
that?
about it.
Mayhem? I know.
Anyway, is there anything you wanted to add to our Medusa episode besides mystery boxes launching? Don't forget about it. Be there or be a square.
Be a square in ancient Greek religion. No, but if you took anything away from this episode, it's the ancient Greco-Romans didn't worship Medusa. Mystery boxes are coming out soon. And if you have questions for guidance about offerings, or if you're on the right path, hey, book a reading with Chelsea.
That's
If you're
right.
looking for resources, research, and more, hey, book that with me. We love to do that here. We also have the Temple Resource Center, which is going to have all of the classes up about altars and offerings and more. And that is coming out the 25th, which should be this Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken, if my
Hmm.
calendar's not lying to me. But with that being said, don't forget to catch up on the Ghost Whisperer. Check out the Ghost Whisperer podcast. Check out the Ghost Whisperer Apothecary. Check out the Dirt Diaries podcast. Check out the Dirt Diaries Patreon. If you want to come to Egypt with me, well, you can do that in April. Until next time, we'll see you guys for more spooky episodes of Sticks and Bones. Bye.
Bye.